So I just wanted to start off, your books center trans and autistic characters, and I'm a parent of an autistic trans masked 17-year-old. So I can see firsthand kind of the impact that representation has, but can you talk about the importance of representation as a young adult author?
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't figure out that I was trans until I was like 19 or 20. And then I didn't figure out that I was autistic until 2021. So it took a hot minute, right? And I really feel like it would have been a lot easier for me. It would have happened a lot sooner. Things would have clicked faster if I'd had representation that more closely fit what I experienced, because like I knew that trans people existed and I knew that autistic people existed, obviously, but I never made the connection that what I was experiencing and what I was feeling was that, right? So a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now is being like, okay, here's my experience. If this is in any way familiar to you, maybe you should look into this. Or on the other hand, it's like, if you already know, it's like, I see you. Like a lot of us grow up and we get to be adults and we get to do things. And it's not that, because there was no like adult representation when I was a kid of one or the other, let alone both.
Right.
Right. So it's like, you can be both and grow up and be successful and have a house and get married if you want. And it's just nice to be like, hey, we make it.
Absolutely. So all three of your books have been banned or challenged in school districts throughout the country. So I'm wondering how your role as a YA author shapes your experience with censorship.
So this question was how I found out that was the case. Because I hear a lot about folks so I hear from a lot of librarians that are like, oh, we almost banned your book, but I stepped in and stopped it. Or a lot of times one time I got a letter from a kid being like, oh, yours was on the chopping block, but we never made a decision. And I feel like a lot of what I run into isn't the sort of censorship where the book is already there and they come in and challenge it and remove it. It's soft censorship. So it never gets bought in the first place. I found an article that discussed that specifically for my most recent one, where they made a request to buy it and then the library just never did. And I have seen some reviews of my books from librarians being like, this is too much. Like, we won't pick it up for the school. And thankfully, nobody has gotten super in my face about it. But there is definitely just this undercurrent of maybe this is just a little too much right now, which sucks. Yeah. But we persevere.
That we do. Does censorship have anything to do with your newest book, You Weren't Meant to Be Human, being for adult audiences?
Actually, no. You Weren't Meant to Be Human was always going to be an adult book. I realized that there were some things that I wanted to discuss that in no way, shape, or form could ever be workable in a YA novel. And I was like, well, I'm a grown adult. I have some things that I want to talk about being grown and being an adult and looking back at childhood very specifically, because in adult, it's easier to look back on teenagerhood, and in YA, it's easier to inhabit teenagerhood. So I was like, we're going to look at this past and who this person is now as a grown adult, and just talk about some things that wouldn't fly. But I'm excited for it. I've started getting early reviews, and I am very, very excited to see how people feel about it.
I'm excited to get a chance to read it. My social media platform focuses on my little free library and getting diverse books out into the community. So kind of in direct opposition of book bans. I've done a lot of book drives. I've done a lot of gathering of books. I'm collecting a bunch to give away at Pride Parade, that kind of thing. So given that censorship is increasingly impacting U.S. public schools, what do you see as opportunities for communities to push back?
It is so difficult is the main thing. I do love like the movement towards free little libraries. I think they're absolutely wonderful. I don't think my HOA would let me get away with one, but I wish that I could. But my wife works at a bookstore and there's one like right in the parking lot. So every now and then, I get these giant boxes of books from my publisher and be like, this is just taking up space in my house, and we don't have a big house, so it needs to go. So I've been, putting some of them in those, in those little boxes. I think one of the things that is very emblematic of the current like book banning sort of epidemic is what happens is people who are against these books will go into a school board and become the most obnoxious, frustrating, and annoying people possible to forcibly push out all of the other people who don't want to deal with it, who don't want to put up with it, who are sick of this. And in doing so, they become the only people that remain and become in charge of that area. And I'm sitting here and be like, we need to get more annoying. We need to be just so frustrating. People need to be like, oh, these people again. Because it's so rare that I see people maybe it's the social media apparatus and you only see the people that are yelling and screaming and being the worst. And you don't get to see a lot of the people that are doing the oppositional work because it's not as flashy, unfortunately. Right. We need to get a little more annoying.
We need to be more flashy.
We need to be more annoying.
A little more in your face.
It's right? Yes, I know you can't, it's not enough to just be right. Yeah. You also have to be right and good at getting your point across and interesting enough to keep people's attention, which is the part that I think is difficult.
There's a selling aspect to it.
Yes, there's a selling aspect, and selling is hard and not very fun. And a lot of the people that I know don't want to be the people that sell stuff because there's that sort of used carsman feel to it. I'm like, no. Use it for good. Use it for good. Come on, we can do this, I promise.
How do you anticipate, you were talking a bit about soft censorship, right? So how do you anticipate censorship impacting the publishing world and particularly for new authors from marginalized communities?
That is one of the things that I am nervous about right now, because unfortunately publishing is a business. It is an industry. So what I am so worried about seeing happen is you start seeing the books that aren't making the shelves, aren't, being picked up or causing controversy. And publishers are going to see that and quietly stop buying them, right? Because you never, when something happens on the back end, when something's already been published, there's always a huge thing about it, but it's so much quieter in the acquisitions process. There's no accountability in the acquisitions process. So it's so difficult to prove that anything has gone on. It's the difference between, hard censorship and soft censorship, just on a industry level. And I'm so worried that they're going to start clocking that and put profits over, humanity.
Right. It's like the big box stores not ordering books.
Exactly.
And that kind of thing that trickles up instead. Yeah. Yeah. Has censorship impacted your ability to publish or the type of marketing support that you receive?
Thankfully, no. My teen publisher, Peachtree Teen, I am so grateful that they not only let me get away with anything at this rate, but they also throw the full weight of their power behind it. We have talked about being okay, we do have to keep an eye on there's an author safety thing at my publisher that's getting they're paying a little more attention to the author safety bit these days. But I can walk in with a book and be like, yeah, so we're going to use the word socialist in the cover copy. And they go, okay. And they don't make me take it out. I legitimately didn't think that was going to stay. So I'm so grateful to Peachtree Teen that they're willing to get behind me, and grateful.
And you're starting off on a really big tour too. So, yeah. So you've got that push behind you. What piece of advice would you give to teens today who are aspiring to become authors?
Yes. So this was something that I had to unlearn. And it's that respectability politics is a demon, right? So I spent a lot of time after I figured out, that I was trans, that I was autistic. And, I'm a horror writer. I love writing gross stuff. I love writing stuff that kind of makes you squirm a little bit. And there was that moment at just figuring out who I was where I was like, should I do that? Because I was so worried that I was going to make my community look bad. I was so worried that someone outside of these communities was going to read my book and they were going to get a bad vibe. They would turn away from their, advocacy because they didn't like what I was doing. And eventually I was like, well, no. If they were going to do that, that was their own problem, right? I'm just writing about my own experience. I'm sorry that I'm not quote unquote good enough representation for you. I'm just over here doing my thing. So if you're worried about writing something that's going to make your group of people look bad, you have to kill that demon. You got to get that out of your head, because you can make good art when you're scared, but it's a lot harder to make good art when you're scared of the art.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.